Hello, welcome to another episode of Sonic Touch, the show dedicated to making music on touch devices. I'm Nick Batt, editor of SonicState.com.
And I'm Gaz Williams, a bass player and producer.
We're now at episode 34, if you're counting, and we certainly are. It's been a little while since our last one. We've had a big summer, lots of sun, holidays, all of those sort of things. But there are still a couple of things that we're going to look at that have come out in the meantime. First of all, I'm going to take a look at the iConnect MIDI 4 Plus. If you remember, back in episode 26, we gave the iConnect MIDI itself a gold award for basically being so awesome.
And I'm going to be looking at the latest update to Korg Gadget. That's something that we looked at in detail in episode 31, but it's just had a really fantastic new update.
So, first of all, let's take a look at the iConnect MIDI 4. If you remember, the iConnect MIDI 2 Plus is basically a USB MIDI hub, but also it allows you to connect your iPad and computer host in a single box and have audio pass-through. The iConnect MIDI 4 Plus adds an extra iPad port to that, or host port, computer port, whatever, and allows you to aggregate up to 2 devices and bring that into a host computer. So it really does up the game. There's a lot of other things besides. So let's take a look at it. Right. So here's the box here. It's a nice, again, another beautifully solid built piece of metal, you know, no kind of corners cut there on the casing. We're powering it by mains here. We've got on the back, we've got 3 in-outs, MIDI ports. We've also got an Ethernet port here to the host port, to the host computer, and also a USB socket here, which is a hub essentially.
Yeah, now that's something that I think is really good and something that marks it very different from the iConnect MIDI 2, because that didn't have the hub. And that is interesting in that you can host USB devices and it doesn't actually need to be connected to the computer.
No, that's true. I've just plugged a single device in here, but you could plug a USB hub and have multiple devices available to both iPads.
Yeah. Or you could have it not connected to an iPad, not connected to a computer, it going into a USB hub and all your nice USB controllers
just talk direct to MIDI.
Talking directly to sort of hardware MIDI.
Yeah, neat. So at the front panel, we've got a power switch here. We've got indicators for power and all the various MIDI ports. So we've got the actual physical MIDI ports, which are 1 to 4, USB host connection, computer connection and Ethernet connection, and also MIDI port 1 in and out, plus 2 connections that you could plug your iPad into. In this case, I've got 2 iPads, or I could actually have other computers. So effectively what I could be doing is actually having 3 computers networked. In this instance, if we go to the wide here, basically I've got 2 iPads, a couple of MIDI devices. This is the CME X keys, which is plugged directly into the host port using this orange lead. I've got the Novation launch key, which is plugged into my computer. And if we go to the computer screen now, for this to work, we have to create aggregate device. So basically what I've done is I've aggregated the built-in audio output of the computer, which is what we're listening to, and also the iConnect MIDI. And I've set this up to be to work with 8 channels. So now, if I go to my Ableton Live, so what I've basically got set up here are 2 MIDI tracks. Track 1 is routed through to the Animoog here, which is on the top iPad. And then if I go to the computer, track 2 is routed to the Cassini on the second iPad. So I'm playing that from my MIDI keyboard, which is coming through Ableton, going out to the iConnect MIDI, which is then communicating to the iPad. It's a little bit complicated in terms of setup. I mean, we kind of covered the routing and things if you look at the iConnect MIDI 2 Plus. There's no real difference, only this has now got 64 available MIDI ports across, how many, 8. No, wait, 4 MIDI.
4 Ethernet.
Yeah, and 4. It's kind of a bit mind-boggling.
Yeah.
But there's more to it as well. There's quite a lot going on here. So essentially, what I've configured is the iConnect MIDI is having 4 audio outputs available to Ableton. So if we look here, I'm basically having iPad 1 is coming in. iPad 2 is coming in rather unintuitively into 1 and 2. iPad 2 into 3 and 4. So a fairly impressive setup, and this is all coming in. At the moment I'm using the internal clock source, but we did run into some problems with the audio where it was crapping out and sounding really clocky.
Yes, so we'd experienced this before with the iConnect MIDI 2, and the way to remedy that is to make sure in your audio MIDI setup, just make sure that when you look here in the aggregate, set the clock source to the iConnect MIDI, and then that should cure that kind of clocking issue.
The other thing that I found is, depending on which order you plug things in, and you know, it can be a little bit finicky, but once it's set up, it seems to be actually pretty stable, and that is impressive. There is a lot more going on besides, because as well as all the MIDI ports, the physical MIDI ports, the MIDI ports that address each individual instrument, there are RTP MIDI ports. Now this is also cool. So on the unit here, I've got Ethernet plugged into our standard router, which is the office network effectively. And what that means is now it announces itself on the network. If we look at the computer here, we've got these 4 ports here. That's the iPad that we're running, Sonic iPad. These are 4 additional MIDI ports which just make themselves available on the network. So that's available, not only is that available to everything, it's available to anything on the network. So the computer over there, which has got nothing to do with this music setup, can also see that because it's hooked up to the network and has RTP MIDI. RTP MIDI is like an Ethernet transport that allows MIDI to transfer between devices. It's built in natively to OS X. You do need a little utility on Windows to run it, but it's really simple and seamless. It just shows up and it remembers connections and you create sessions. It's really complex and powerful.
So you could really imagine how this could be the hub in your studio, how it can connect new devices, old devices with the MIDI and... Well,
exactly. I mean, the new features add even more methods of connectability, if that's a word. I'll make it a word. The only thing I would say, and this is a bit of a problem for me, I noticed, is when you plug the iPads into this device, their audio capability is disabled and automatically routed through the USB, and there doesn't seem to be a way to switch that off if, say, for instance, for whatever reason you wanted to use the headphone out, which you may want to. You might want to monitor, you know, who knows? There could be a variety of reasons.
You could have a FaceTime call coming in.
Exactly, it could be quite important. Another good thing, though, is that basically it comes with a 30-pin to USB connector. So you can plug one of the iPads or into this, using it, and it will charge as well at the same time, which is, yes, that's what we want. There is no lightning connector as yet, but it's on the way, so there will be a choice to have. But you know, those leads need to be sold because that means they can both be charged.
So so it would actually keep both charged then if you had the correct leads.
That's right.
Yeah,
which is awesome because we haven't found anything else that does that.
No.
So the guys at iConnect MIDI are smart cookies. You know what they've done is basically create something that is more useful even than the 2 Plus. And the 2 Plus, I mean, I know you use yours still, don't you?
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's a very important part of my studio now. So we should mention as well that there is an app, well, both software version and on the iPad as well, which allows you to configure this multiple routing.
Yeah, exactly. Well, on the Mac here, I've got the app running. I mean, it's the same sort of thing runs on the iOS device as well, where we can patch, you know, what inputs to outputs. I must say, it took me a little while to figure out what the heck was going on. It's a little bit like, wow, because if you're talking a 64-port matrix, it's a lot. But you can set, you've got MIDI info, you've got port routing, you've got port filters, so you can set, you know, filter out certain stuff. You can also channel remap things, so you can map one channel to another channel. Controller filters, controller remap, which again, you know, is as the hub of your MIDI system. That's a lot of I mean, I'm a big fan of MIDI. I know MIDI is 30 years old, but the amount of stuff that we control here in the studio using MIDI over RTP MIDI over Wi-Fi is amazing, you know, and this just is fantastic for that.
And also, I mean, having all of this ability to filter things and to sort of remap stuff or whatever means that those old pieces of equipment which have got fairly limited MIDI, it allows you to sort
plug them in,
just
get them plugged in.
Yeah.
But also, as you said, the thing about having the host port on here is, you know, we could have like this keyboard here is just routed through to this iPad, I could route it to both iPads using the, and that means I don't have to have this computer involved. It can all happen sort of outside the box. Really, really cool, actually. And I can't sort of, I don't know if I can say it enough. We've already given it a gold award for its concept, but in terms of an update and a new product, it really is deserving of some other award. We'll make one up for it, but it really is, A1, apart from not being able to not route the audio through it. That would be the only thing I would say.
Yeah, like just to be able to just simply make it a MIDI routing and just to sort of disable the audio pass through.
That's the only thing I can really think of. So I know, we've been waiting for these for quite a long time. There was, they were supposed to be coming into the country at the beginning of the year, weren't they? And but now they are. The availability is there, which is good, because we were getting, I know you were getting a bit frustrated.
Oh yeah, I'm desperate for one.
But the price, it's 179 UK pounds. I got them from various retailers. That seems to be pretty much it. Also, if you go to the actual website, they say the street price in the US is going to be about 199 US dollars. So that's the first of our two products for the show. Now we're going to take a look at Korg's Gadget. That's also been updated and did win a gold award last time we looked at it. Gaz is going to take us through it.
So Korg's just had this brilliant new update for Gadget, and we looked at it fairly recently, didn't we?
Episode 31.
Episode 31. But really, what's new? I just had to show it. Really,
it won a gold award then.
It did, and what it does now is it's just so superb. So we're gonna open it, and the first thing we're gonna notice is
landscape mode.
Landscape mode. Now, Gadget was just fixed in portrait, which was really annoying for people who use docks and
and shot shows where they had to reset cameras. That too.
So that's the first thing that's immediately noticeable. The next thing is, like, if we just go in and have a little look here at one of our gadgets, I'll go into the Berlin one, for instance. If I press function, we've got a new box appear here. And what we can see on here is all of the parameters are now assignable via MIDI. And rather than a MIDI learn thing, which I think is maybe better, you've got this like long list that you have to scroll through looking for what for the parameter you want to change. So, but if I come down here, I can find VCF frequency. Going over to the Novation now, it'll instantly pick up, say, CC22, CC23. Let's go back on here, 21. Okay, and let's move this over to filter.
Right.
And we've got our filter mapping now. So,
before you do that, one thing I would like to say is we just plugged the cable in here from the iConnect MIDI, just replaced the iPad, and it picked up the audio, which was another cool...
Yeah, we didn't have to do anything with that, did we?
Anyway, carry on.
No, that was a good point. So now you can imagine you could map loads of things, and you've got suddenly... it expands.
And that's
gadgets.
per instance. So if you change the instance, the same controller could be affecting a different parameter and a different instrument. Right. Okay.
Yeah. And also, one of the benefits of going into landscape as well, we notice now the width of the gadget essentially remains the same. So the real estate they've cleverly used to put the master channel and the instrument channel, which you couldn't...
Either side, right.
Yeah, you couldn't adjust that before. You'd have had to have come out to the mixer.
Oh, that's neat.
Yeah, so those things are good. There's also two new gadgets, which the downside of that is, sadly, they are in-app purchases.
Had to come sometime. I mean, to be honest, I know this wasn't a particularly cheap soft app in the first place, but it came with a heck of a lot of stuff, didn't it?
It did. So now something I should mention. Okay, let's just come back out now. So press back, takes us to the mixing desk. So we've got the Bilbao, which is like a sample player, and we've got the Abu Dhabi, which is like a kind of sample rearranger. So they're both kind of samples. These are not particularly cheap in-app purchases. These are £6.99 each, which I think is $10
bucks.
Yeah. And for the money, they don't do an awful lot. They're nice in terms of they look good and they fit into the Gadget universe in a nice way. And because you can import your own samples in as well, sort of means that was something that you couldn't do with any of the other gadgets.
I suppose, fair enough.
Yeah, but so Bilbao essentially is just like, I suppose you're getting into like an MPC kind of territory with the Bilbao, and you've got various things you can do to the sample.
Looks a bit like a machine drum, that, doesn't it? Just a little bit. just saying.
Just saying. Yeah, it does. There's some great patches in there though, and there's I think it's about 30 odd kits, so there's quite a lot of cool sounding stuff. And as I say, you can see there, factory. We could also go to user, and for each of the individual pads, if I was to say choose that one, hit sample.
Right. Oh, that's an easy way to do it.
Yeah, and if I went to import, for instance, you could bring it in from Dropbox, or you could use the Retronym's audio paste functionality.
Right, okay.
Yeah. So you can see sampling there. That actually is using, if I was to go into that, it'll open up audio copy and paste. And now this is audio copy version 2, which has now got a record function.
Oh, so you could just blah blah into it. And
Yeah.
Right. Oh, that's neat.
Yeah. So that's a way of of bringing things in, or using if I was just to click on the audio paste, then here's my list of audio paste files that I could get to.
Right.
Okay, so that's Bilbao. The other new one is Abu Dhabi. So let's have a look at Abu Dhabi. It's like a sample slicer, it's
or a Rex player maybe.
Yeah. It reminds me of the iPad app sampler.
Yeah, we covered that before, didn't we? Yeah.
Wonderful app. But so you can see that each slice, you can adjust various parameters like effect send per slice, pans, level, attack decay, etc. And but it kind of comes into its own when you enable the ARP function, and it's a little bit like a beat repeat. Each slice can be set a different repeat rate.
Often use that kind of sound in my own production.
Actually, though, it is pretty cool. I've just made.
I guess it could be quite useful with vowel sounds and maybe bits of cut, bits of speech, that kind of thing.
Well, I'm just gonna open a project now. Northwest Repellent. This fantastic.
The auto naming hasn't been yet.
Yeah. Let's set this track off. So. So. A little sample. So, this is quite a contemporary sort of sound, isn't it? Okay, now, here is the killer feature. So here's a project that, as I say, I made earlier. It's got 10, you can think of these scenes. We likened Gadget a little bit to the Ableton Live workflow.
Yeah.
And obviously, Korg have likened it to it too, so much so they've essentially incorporated an Ableton export functionality.
Okay.
So I hit this button here and I go to export. So here's my regular export options here, but now at the bottom of the list we've got an Ableton Live project. Now I've not seen this in any other product before. So if I was to select that, I could say, okay, I'm going to send it to Dropbox. I hit Dropbox, it starts to export. This first kind of cycle, if you will, is just preparing the project. Now the next cycle
it's got to
is
upload it.
uploading. Okay, so that's going to take a while. Now that's actually something in the finest Blue Peter tradition, something that we prepared earlier.
Right.
I'll cancel that. Now, so that's gone up to the Dropbox.
In fact, if you have a look on the computer there, it's come up on the screen.
Yep.
Okay,
so now we see, here's Northwest Repellent. Straight from, actually, this folder is the Dropbox folder that we're looking at.
So it's in the cloud.
Click on that, I won't save that. And bringing it in, and look.
There it is.
Yeah, and if we were to look at the content, look, audio clips of all the Gadget parts, all laid out in an Ableton Live project. And if we jump back here, we can see, look, as I say, we've got our 10 scenes and our sort of 5 tracks, our 10 scenes, our 5 tracks, it's all in there.
So if you play the intro, which we've got going on.
Yep.
So, okay, and we come back to here, so you stop that.
Scene 2, I'll play scene 2 off here now, if you want to stop that. Okay.
A bit louder.
Bit of a gain difference.
That's awesome,
Isn't it? Awesome? It's amazing. And one thing you notice as well, like the colour schemes, look, see, so the London module is like this blue colour, the Tokyo one's pink, and the Abu Dhabi one is like this turquoise. So the colour scheme, it kind of carries across as well.
And the thing that's very cool about that is, I mean, obviously it hasn't got effects or anything, but it just takes the audio clips, creates them.
Yep.
And Korg are obviously talking closely with Ableton. In fact, also announced just yesterday was the Electribe sampler, which also tightly integrates with Ableton Live. So they're obviously communicating, and this is, I mean, it's pretty cool, isn't it?
Well, you notice when you do the, if you were to do the export here and go into Ableton Live, get free Ableton Live Lite. So there's a link within the software. So there's definitely something going on there. But I mean, really, that integration and the way that you can just, I mean, it's so simple, so simple.
Jam on the way home.
Yeah.
Upload it.
Yeah.
Carry on. Add your vocals on in live.
Yeah. And, you know, we've seen, like, with Cubase, you know, you can modify your version of Cubase to have this importer, so you can then bring in your Cubase project into Cubase, which is really good, but there's just a little bit extra process involved. This is just, it's a no-brainer. It's so simple to use.
Clever clogs.
And it's just, wow. And suddenly, all that fantastic stuff in Gadget is there, and you've got all of the editing and extra ability to...
Yeah, and that is a very clever bit of work. Yeah. And the fact that it just, I mean, because we just shared the Dropbox on, and then essentially I could be working on a project. Yeah. You could just kind of be somewhere in the middle of nowhere or anywhere with a network connection, go, oh, just come up with this nifty loop. It gives me an indicator on my Dropbox folder. So, oh, Gaz has just uploaded something. Do you want to check it out? And then I can immediately start working on it.
And then you're in there. Yeah, so brilliant. And, you know, the thing about Gadget, which really does blow me away, is that when you play around with it, everything you do on it just sounds fantastic. Sounds like
it's tight and punchy, isn't it?
Oh, it just sounds beautiful. The new apps, whatever you call them, the new gadgets, the new devices, you know, albeit a little on the pricey side, extend the functionality even further. And I mean, you know, just to recap, you know, when we look at our gadget list, I mean, obviously with our two new ones, you know, here we go, we scroll through, you know, there's a lot of stuff in here. And as a platform, I just think it looks like it's going to grow and grow. And this new sort of Ableton Live handshake, just, you know.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Really very, very interesting, yeah.
So, again, how much is the actual app itself?
So it's $38, $27.49 UK pounds.
That's quite often a deal depending on what the promotion is and stuff.
Yeah,
so it's worth checking that out.
Yeah. And obviously, as we mentioned, those in-app purchases at $6.99 are not the cheapest.
No.
However, you know,
we think that certainly the Gadget universe has been enhanced and it's maintaining its gold award. There's no doubt about it.
Absolutely, yeah. And in fact, I think with this latest update with the Ableton Live implementation, for me, has just...
The bar's been raised.
The bar's been raised, and it's now, I think, made Gadget...
It's king of the heap?
I think so.
Interesting.
Yeah. And remember, it is also audio bus compatible as well. Right. So you can integrate it with your other apps.
You do need a fairly pokey machine to get the best out of it, though. It's the best
yes, you
say,
do.
Isn't it?
Yes, you do. And like we mentioned in the review before, you do have a freeze function. So you can freeze tracks. So if you are running on an iPad 2, you can increase the track count by 3 or 4 extra tracks. An iPad Air, like this one, will do about 20 tracks. So, you know, you can do a lot with that for sure.
Absolutely. So we're going to finish up.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for watching, as ever. I mean, you know, without you, wouldn't be much point in making the show, would there, really?
Nope.
Want to say also thank you very much to the entrants of the competition, where we had 2 X keys, CME X keys. One has been claimed. We're still waiting for the other one to get in touch. So if you haven't checked your YouTube inbox for a while, please do. There will be a lot of notifications from me saying, you won, you won. I'm not going to say who it is just yet, in case you never get back to me. We have to pick another winner. But don't worry, one's gone, one's waiting. So we're going to finish up by...
Well, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go and grab the project that we created earlier, which was the iConnect MIDI setup.
Right, so you just dragged that into there.
I just dragged that in there. It's a great thing with Ableton Live. You can just merge 2 projects together. So I'm taking...
just drag it on there?
Yeah, drag it on it into space, and now it's put both
So now
projects.
we've got our iPads and stuff set up, so we've just got to tinker around and make sure everything's rooted, and then what we're going to do is basically play out.
Jam out!
Yes! Right, so we're set up. Took a little bit of finagling around, but if I can explain what's happening. Right, so CME keyboard is going into the iConnect MIDI, which is directly powering Alchemy on this iPad. This keyboard.
Yep, this one is going into the laptop. Then Ableton Live is now routing it through the iConnect MIDI
To the top one.
to the top one, which is running Animoog.
Both of the audios from these iPads here are coming
Yes.
back into 2 channels on the laptop here, and the clips are playing from, we exported from Gadget in the other tracks.
That's right, yeah.
Okay, you ready?
Yeah, take it away, Maestro.
3, 2, 1. Two, three, four.